It can dry into a lifeless speck, sleep through disaster, and return when water touches its body again. This is the tardigrade, a creature so small that a single drop of pond water can become its entire world. So strange that under a microscope it looks almost unreal. So tough that scientists have sent it into space, frozen it, dried it, exposed it to radiation, and still watch some of them come back to life. But the tardigrade is not a monster. It is not magic. It is a real animal living quietly in moss, mud, soil, fresh water, and the sea. And its greatest power is not strength. It is survival. Tardigrades are often called water bears or moss piglets. The name water bear comes from their slow, heavy-looking walk under the microscope. Their scientific group is Tardigrade, a name that means something close to slow stepper or slow walker. And when you see one moving, the name makes sense. It does not swim like a fish. It does not glide like a worm. It walks. Tiny legs reach forward. Little claws grip the surface. The body pulls itself ahead with a clumsy, almost gentle motion. It looks like a miniature bear crossing a hidden forest floor. But this forest is not made of trees. It is made of moss leaves, sand grains, algae threads, and microscopic debris. A tardigrade is a microscopic invertebrate animal. It is not a bacterium. It is not a single-celled organism. It is a complete animal with a head, a body, muscles, nerves, a digestive system, eggs, and legs. Most tardigrades are far less than 1 millimeter long. Some are only a few hundred micrometers in size. To the naked eye, many would look like dust if you could see them at all. Under the microscope, they become unforgettable. Their bodies are short, plump, and slightly transparent. They usually have 4 pairs of legs, making 8 legs in total. Each leg may end in tiny claws or gripping structures. Their bodies are covered by a cuticle, a flexible outer layer that must be shed as they grow. Some species look smooth, others carry plates, spines, or sculptured armor-like surfaces. Some have simple eye spots. Some have no visible eyes at all. Inside the head is one of the most important tools in tardigrade life, the feeding apparatus. Tardigrades have sharp stylets, tiny spear-like mouthparts. These are used to pierce food. Behind them is a muscular pharynx, a pumping structure that helps suck in fluids. For many plant-feeding tardigrades, this means piercing algae cells, moss cells, or plant cells and drawing out the contents. Others feed on bacteria, fungi, decaying matter, or tiny organisms. Some larger and more predatory tardigrades hunt rotifers, nematodes, protozoa, and even smaller tardigrades. In their world, a strand of algae can be a forest, a nematode can be prey, a drop of water can be an ocean. Tardigrades live wherever there is enough moisture for them to become active. They are found in damp moss, lichens, wet soil, leaf litter, ponds, rivers, lakes, freshwater sediments, marine sediments, beaches, and deep sea environments. Some live on plants, some live among grains of sand. Some survive in temporary pools that appear after rain and vanish under the sun. Their real home is not simply water. It is the thin film of water around things. A moss cushion on a stone may look dry and silent from the outside, but after rain, between its tiny leaves, a microscopic world wakes up. Bacteria multiply, algae swell, rotifers begin to move, nematodes twist through the wet spaces, and tardigrades, curled in survival form, slowly return. This is why moss is one of the easiest places to find them. A small piece of moss soaked in water can release a hidden community. Under a microscope, the ordinary becomes wild. The surface of a rock becomes a jungle. A roof gutter becomes a wetland. A handful of soil becomes a planet of small animals. But tardigrades are not active all the time. They need water to move, feed, grow, and reproduce. When their surroundings are moist, they walk through the water film, search for food, digest, molt, mate, lay eggs, and continue their lives like any other tiny animal. When the water disappears, everything changes. A normal animal would die as its cells dried out. Membranes would collapse. Proteins would lose their shape. DNA could be damaged. Metabolism would fail. A tardigrade responds by entering one of the most extraordinary survival states in the animal kingdom. It pulls in its legs. It contracts its body. It loses much of its body water. It becomes a small barrel-shaped form called a ton. In this state, the tardigrade can appear almost dead. Movement stops. Feeding stops. Growth stops. Reproduction stops. Metabolism falls to an extremely low level, and in some cases becomes so hard to detect that the animal seems suspended between life and death. This survival state is called cryptobiosis. One form of it, anhydrobiosis, is survival through drying. For a tardigrade living in moss or temporary water, drying is not rare. It may happen again and again through its lifetime. Rain comes, the moss wakes, the tardigrade feeds, the sun returns, the moss dries, the tardigrade folds into a ton and waits. This is not immortality, it is not invincibility. A tardigrade can still die. Too much heat for too long can kill it. Strong radiation can damage it. Some species are tougher than others. Active tardigrades are much more fragile than cryptobiotic ones. If a hydrated tardigrade is crushed, cooked, poisoned, or trapped without oxygen too long, it can die like any other animal. But in the ton state, some tardigrades can endure conditions that would destroy most active life. They have survived extreme drying. They have survived freezing. Some have survived very high and very low temperatures for limited periods. Some have survived strong radiation doses in experiments. Some have survived vacuum exposure in space experiments, especially when shielded from the worst solar radiation. In 2007, tardigrades were exposed to space conditions during a European mission. Many survived vacuum and cosmic radiation. Survival was much lower when strong solar ultraviolet radiation was added. This matters because it reminds us to be accurate. Tardigrades can survive some space exposure under experimental conditions, but they do not live, feed, grow, or reproduce normally in open space. They need water. They need a suitable environment. Space is not their home. Their home is Earth, and Earth gives them more than enough danger. In a pond, they may be eaten by larger microorganisms or tiny aquatic animals. In moss and soil, they may be prey for mites, nematodes, springtails, insect larvae, spiders, snails, or even other tardigrades. Fungi can attack them. Pollution can damage the tiny habitats they depend on. Acid rain, heavy metals, drying patterns, extreme heat, and habitat disturbance can reduce local populations. Their greatest threats are often not dramatic. A moss patch dries too long, a wet soil layer is polluted, a temporary pool never returns, a microscopic world disappears without anyone noticing. Yet tardigrades spread widely across the planet. As a group, they are found from polar regions to tropical forests, from mountains to deep-sea sediments, from freshwater to marine habitats. Their tiny size helps them move in ways larger animals cannot. Resting stages, eggs, or dried individuals can be carried by wind, water, mud, plant material, animals, and possibly birds. A piece of moss on a shoe, a current in a stream, or a gust across a dry surface may help move them into a new habitat. But not every tardigrade species is found everywhere. Some are widespread, others are specialized, living in certain climates, sediments, altitudes, or marine conditions. Scientists are still describing new species, and the true diversity of tardigrades is probably larger than what is currently known. Their reproduction is just as varied as their habitats. Many tardigrades lay eggs. Depending on the species, a female may lay a small clutch, sometimes inside her shed cuticle, sometimes attached to a surface. Some eggs are smooth. Others are beautifully ornamented, with tiny bumps, spikes, cones, or sculptured patterns that look like microscopic artwork. These egg shapes can help scientists identify species. Some tardigrades reproduce sexually, with males and females. Others reproduce by parthenogenesis, where females produce offspring without fertilization. Some species are hermaphroditic or self-fertilizing. In good conditions, development can be fairly quick, but temperature, food, moisture, and species biology can change the timing. The young hatch as tiny versions of adults. They already have the basic tardigrade form, but may have fewer developed features than mature individuals. As they grow, they molt, shedding their outer cuticle. During molting, some tardigrades also lay eggs into the old cuticle, turning their shed skin into a protective chamber for the next generation. Their active lifespan depends on the species and conditions. Scientists do not have one exact lifespan for all tardigrades, because there are many species living in very different environments. In active life, many may live for months, and some can live longer. Cryptobiosis complicates the idea of age. If a tardigrade spends long periods dried, frozen, or inactive, its biological aging may slow or pause. That means a tiny animal may pass through long stretches of time without truly living those days in the normal active sense. This is one reason tardigrades fascinate scientists. They force us to ask a strange question. What does it mean to be alive when life has almost stopped? When a tardigrade becomes a ton, it is not behaving like an ordinary sleeping animal. It is a biological system under extreme pause. Researchers study special proteins, sugars, DNA repair, cell protection, and molecular switches that may help tardigrades protect their cells during drying and stress. Some tardigrade proteins seem to help stabilize cells when water is gone. Other mechanisms may protect DNA or help repair damage after stress. This research is not just curiosity. It could help scientists understand how cells survive dehydration, freezing, radiation, and spaceflight stress. NASA has studied tardigrades as model organisms for survival in extreme environments and for understanding stress responses across generations in space. Tardigrade biology may one day inspire better ways to preserve biological samples, protect cells, study aging, or understand how life responds to hostile environments. But even without space missions, tardigrades matter deeply in nature. They are part of the microscopic food web. Some graze on algae and plant cells. Some feed on bacteria, fungi, and organic particles. Some hunt smaller animals. Some become food for predators. In soil and moss ecosystems, they help connect microbes, plants, and tiny animals in a hidden cycle of feeding and recycling. They are not usually direct heroes or villains. They are participants in balance. For humans, tardigrades are considered harmless. They are not known to bite people. They do not invade homes like pests. They do not attack birds, fish, livestock, or crops in the way harmful parasites do. A few tardigrade species may be associated with other organisms, and some are predators in the microscopic world, but the group as a whole is not a danger to humans. Their value is not in fear. Their value is in wonder. The history of tardigrade science began in the 18th century when early microscopists first saw these strange little animals. Johann August Ephraim Goeze described them in the 1770s and called them little water bears. Later, Lazzaro Spallanzani gave the group the name Tardigrada, inspired by their slow movement. Since then, microscopes have improved, species descriptions have grown, and tardigrades have moved from curiosity to serious research subjects. Their evolutionary history reaches far deeper than human science. Tardigrades belong near the great animal groups that include arthropods and velvet worms. Their exact evolutionary relationships have been studied and debated, partly because their fossil record is rare. Small, soft-bodied animals do not fossilize easily. Some fossil evidence links tardigrade-like forms to ancient lineages hundreds of millions of years old. But the complete story of their origin is still not fully known. That uncertainty is important. Science is not weakened by saying we do not know yet. It becomes stronger. We know tardigrades are ancient in their deeper evolutionary roots. We know they are real animals with complex survival abilities. We know they can enter cryptobiosis. We know they can survive drying, freezing, and other stresses under certain conditions. But we do not know every limit, every mechanism, or every species still hidden in the world. And that is what makes them so powerful as documentary subjects. A tardigrade is not impressive because it is huge. It is impressive because it is almost invisible. It survives not by ruling its world, but by wading through it. When the pond dries, it does not chase water. When the mussel loses moisture, it does not escape. When conditions turn against it, it folds inward, protects what matters, and becomes still. Then, when water returns, the impossible happens quietly. The body swells, the The legs unfold, the mouth parts move, the tiny animal walks again. In that moment, a dry speck becomes a living creature. A hidden survivor returns to the world. And beneath our feet, on stones, rooftops, tree bark, pond edges, soil, and moss, millions of small lives are doing the same thing. They are waiting for rain. They are feeding in secret. They are laying eggs in old cuticles. They are hunting, hiding, drying, waking, and disappearing again. The tardigrade reminds us that life does not need to be large to be extraordinary. It does not need to be loud to be powerful. Sometimes the strongest survival story on Earth is not found in a jungle, a desert, or the deep sea. Sometimes it is curled inside a piece of moss, silent, dry, almost weightless, waiting for one drop of water.